Here we go. Aries recognition for the Saturnal Valor horoscopes for January 9th, 2021. The advancement of intimacy in one's communal circles may find support in a sharing of your particular and curious survival story, especially if one has a predisposition to lessen or downplay your evolutionary agency as mundane, ordinary, or inconsequential. Or more importantly, if you happen to assume yourself unlovable or grotesque. You may ask yourself, what is the source of this disfigurement by selfishness in the eyes of others? You may not have been the recipient of the actual hackings of war in this lifetime, or you may be, but there most certainly has been a fugitive alleviation somewhere in your history that has come from wayward affection, a blessed risk someone else took to provide safety to your ancestors, perhaps to the attunement of their own sacrifice. We see this in this forbidden love that occurs with those caught between a tribal disparity. For example, when a prisoner facing execution is freed by a remaining heretic that will surely fulfill the gallows instead. Let's say this happened and you have trouble in this lifetime with friends or loves. There may not be so much of a debt that requires some sophisticated cosmic payment, but rather an authoritative recognition of a need for love that enlivens independence rather than hinders it. This comes from saying who you are by recalling the true nature of your instincts to those unusual to your likeness, and especially if you happen to be a steward of loneliness in this moment. Seeing the imperfect self in others, seeing the imperfect self in others through a calling out may heal some fundamental fears about who you are in comparison to others. Taurus recognition. The privations of life may now carry a restless intent in the thoroughfare of the senses, as the concept of plenitude may confuse you. Even exemplary abundance may have a captive translucence that would indicate illusory stabilizations, as simply and surely you may be called on a level of instinct to provide much needed nurturance in the world. If there are expansions of your harvest stores in the moment, perhaps their justification is apparent in the contact of sharing in an innovative and exponential manner. If there are deficiencies in your harbors, perhaps the necessary gathering of resources occurs through your own establishment of a prophetic generosity. This is not to say that a deferential or servile contribution to the world where boundaries and supports are devoured in heists and phantom vaults is necessary to the stature of your own work. To be clear, the deepening of desire through requirements is what is at work here. Rather, an intelligence that confirms your body in the world as an everlasting mana, O longer than death you may be, and where there is fulfillment in the innermost functions of the day, within and without, may be the arrival of planetary leadership on your part, as well as a justification for your necessity. Gemini recognition. You may have recently been drawing away from communal disparagement when it comes to your fundamental belief in love and friendship. These consumptive relationships may have impeded some worthy creative functioning on your part that required fulfillment and connection through a shared adoration of curiosity. an etherealization of your values when it comes to social circles may have introduced a phantom battery of grief that have been recessing for an era, like a bog body with your countenance discovered with a preservation of axe materials in the shoulder. The leathery front flanking of your importance has a real opportunity to be separated from the basic senses. The wound, if not the weapon, can be extracted. Perhaps the injury, or more accurately, the betrayal that has disabled the confidence you are building between the mind and creative actualization, is actually a shield you have tricked yourself into carrying. Have you made yourself a compassionate benefactor to those who are intimidated by what the growth your intellect into form may heed for their own development? Be honest with yourself, as you may be in possession of an artistic responsibility that can only come through the understanding in yourself of what you may become in your work. Don't let the pride of feigned compassion prevent you from a genius that you are only a flashing steward of. Answer recognition. The host of perfection is the thoroughfare of the utmost familiarity, but there may be a cunning recognizance at this moment that disturbs itself through a confusion of urgencies. For someone who upholds the universe through their own domicile rendition, being fundamentally unsettled for my Cancerian folks can be spiritually disorienting. Furthermore, you have witnessed many occultations of grandiose purpose in the last few years that carry personal instruction for you. And there may be an assumption of the digestion of eventualities that you mistake for the process required to not only complete your home in the world, but offer such hearth to others through your own example. I would suggest that now is the time for silent means to adjust to your needs towards the greatest intentions. Be careful of where you subtly borrow from others impositions about what you declare as the essential qualifications of your purpose, particularly where responsibility collides with this unique upkeep of your health. For my Cancerian friends, or those who naturally feel a national concern at this time, I would allow yourself a little complexity in the personal is political requirements for good in the world. This is not to bask in apathy and disaffection, but rather not be overwhelmed with disquiet when you have great work to do. There's obviously not only a slaughter of external engagements to be dealt with in the grand scheme of human experience, but an impervious responsibility to enact comfort and consolation for all. But perhaps here is the trick to absolutes. The betterment of total safety in the world might be conducted through the exploration of how the emotions and body create an evolutionary chariot toward this achievement. For this research, shame and guilt that come from an unwise involvement in matters beyond your immediate control may obscure the subjective merit of you taking care of yourself as a truth to us all. Leo recognition. You may have felt a king's tide recently in the holistic composure of your relationships, perhaps through some sort of elimination that occurs when the true nature of reality becomes personified in those around you. One can think of such experiences in the unintended clarity that mirrors and digital photographs provide, that consequently disrupt the insular manner in how we assume ourselves to others. What happens when we find ourselves in the sudden expectation of what may be considered as grotesque? Do we recoil, advance our will in desperation, or accept our true meaning to those who have established a presence in our lives. One way to deal with the truth of our own appearances that may intrude on our own hopes and illusions of pervasive attractiveness is to modify our playfulness into caricature. Another means would be to broadcast a fabricated self acceptance that does well to suppress a natural affinity for surface orientations. For my Leo identifying friends, don't mistake me. It is good to be pretty, but perhaps this science in compatibility would not be in a pronouncement of allure or imperfection, but in allowing others to fulfill the beauty that we may not quite be able to locate yet in ourselves. This middle way would be in the allowance of creative partnerships that would support the necessary recognition required of this self to confirm that one's vitality is offering greatness to the world. This is not getting over oneself so much as getting beside ourselves in a truer camaraderie. In this manner, you may find yourself not only further actualizing your purpose in concert with those around you, but perhaps healing them with the story of the stabilization of your self confidence through an accurate depiction of how important you are as a reliant friend. Virgo recognition. A commitment to the refinement of your metamorphic processes and therefore the expansion of your most intimate conductivity to the Almighty may have caused you an anxious disconnection with this consensus reality that is performing its own awful purification rite of responsibility these days. I would not be surprised if the great stupidity going on in the world and in others has in some way injured your anchoring sense of holiness at this sensitive time. However, there is in no way imperfection on your part for feeling this. Perhaps you possess a pragmatic awareness that any restructuring of consciousness and therefore true lasting change must be facilitated through earnest spiritual discipline. Without an application and consistent activity, changes cannot occur. Severe disillusionment may have set in the realization that collective consciousness does not have the capacity for the imperative clarity that you seek for yourself. For if your struggles for realization have not come lightly, what cataclysmic humanity must we all endure to become whole again? Hope is this manner, Hope in this manner may become abstract and remote in both a global and personal sense for you. For what is hope but the suggestion of the triumph of the laws of nature? And if our nature does nothing demonstrable but devour us, what then? But please do not disconnect from the great self through a maze of justifications. To my Virgo identifying friends, I would offer to take care that this disillusionment, which, by the way, is not illusory, uh, does not turn into the commander of distances where healthy vulnerability is unable to be achieved for yourself as strength. Your authority right now is in the development of this abysmal fact into a medicinal impulse and sharing your findings with the all of us. My suggestion would be to extract all that distorts and obscures the therapies that would not provide growth through varied intimacy, but also supports your eventuality as a sovereign physician in the years ahead. This may require that you pay close enough attention to your own sacred processes rather than the public ones received through television, internet, and here, social media. So that you may persuade others confidently what is worth committing to in a generational manner one day. Libra recognition. As you may naturally possess a guiding consolation, you may have beholden recently that the supposed designated journey of Libra inclined folks as a relational ballast between others has taken on a new cosmological function. This may be too outlandish to take so seriously at first, but perhaps the universe may be subtly more enlivened in its own connectivity as you take responsibility for your own gifts of understanding by becoming more of a friend to yourself. We would require some evidential support here for this sort of existential nonsense of mine, but I will ask you first if you find instances where you're a reliable partner to yourself, where you excuse your experiences from dissipating in deferential behavior, do you encounter your own foundational authenticity that others automatically respect, if not revere? And perhaps this has been a great stepping forward for you personally, and where your availability has matured into a divine filtering. And a little bit more of that glorious energy has esteemed itself for your own keeping. I might offer your own expression of religiosity in this functional authenticity of yours, for there may be an emergent gospel you are inadvertently summoning at our behest. For this zealotry of understanding that you are already born in accordance with may coordinate not only the equality you deserve in your associations, but provide intelligence to us all as to what justice can be composed of on an essential level. Scorpio recognition, I would suspect that some exposure of a closely held metamorphic intent has readied itself into a bit of raw answerability beyond the routine protections of the self. This may translate into an accomplishment phase for you, and well done for your hard work. Yet the mastery involved may seem like a beacon of exhausted sensitivity rather than the tireless dignity we are accustomed to in heroism. In a pronounced state, the results uh, may feel horrific, like so many aftermaths of peace where we begin to collect the wounded and the dead before the braying of trombones and trumpets. This release of long, burdensome preparation for this moment may indeed feel like a lack of control, uncomfortable in a natural sort of decommissioning of the chariot that provided this undertaking. That is your private self identity. Yet, my Scorpio inclined friends, may I suggest that the worst you could injure yourself with now is by accosting your beliefs with the sterility and forensic bemusement that is so in fashion these days. I have looked forward to this moment of your experience. And as I've felt the need to place the slaughter at the altar or at the bedside and not at the laboratory, I found a primal reverence lacking in the world. Yet I am unsure many of us are prepared for such honesty. And this may be where you come in. We are looking towards you, my Scorpio friends, in your account of integrations as a precipice of new morality. But allow us not to laden you with so much pressure at once. You might acclimate your immense power before assuming too much in responsibility. For the minuet of attraction and repulsion may certainly test you, but you are going to say the truths we need to hear about sharing the things we ought to prevent or uphold in the depths whenever you are ready. Sagittarius recognition. Has there been someone in your life that you didn't know what to do with their love? Perhaps this is a time where one could prepare for friendship after a dormant outcome, either through acquaintance or resemblance. But maybe closure or reactivation isn't the impetus for reestablishment, but a moral transmutation through a sophisticated forgiveness. Even the most devout affections are subject to what guards the heavens through our experience. The power in what we believe in. For example, with the conflict of the day, I see many folks severing ties with those whom they have loved at one time. And it seems to me due to a difference in faithfulness. And I'm not talking purely about religiosity and partisanship, but as we see according to the American political spectrum, it can include that. I'm talking about what people put their faith in and what that does to friendships and communities when the faith is shared or not universally. When you and I are on the same page, let's spend the centuries forever. But if one differs about what is valuable to the cosmic breath, then we must complete distance even if we're compatible in nature. You know, the most savage friendship in the galaxy might be the truth. The truth about our fealty to each other is contingent to the truth we seek out among the being of our lives. So, even in this era of vicious countrymen, perhaps there is a time when you can allow a temporal truth that says something about a belief we are trying to find separately, but together. Even for a lunar instance, we can tell someone that we've abandoned, perhaps, that we believe in them enough to want to see them happy. Capricorn recognition. The restructuring of your consciousness continues with the emergence of purpose that may indeed seem like an infinite boast of time. The skin on the hands withdraws, the face becomes indebted to creases, the hair releases color for wisdom, and yet this may be what you have worked for. To transpire the ages through this fleck of a body and see what power is left according to your independence. I imagine this is an era where you may have felt so old and so young at once. And perhaps this, in a way, is an immortality that you have stumbled upon for yourself. An exercise. What is it you can identify with after the seas develop to the mountains and the positions of the stars have been lost to themselves? What is left? For you may be the most knowledgeable of this cosmic metabolism after all the hard work that has occurred over the last 3 years, waiting for the fortunes to change to the point that you've tried to identify yourself as the wasting of the ages to hasten a renewal. Perhaps this work is not all done yet, but your mastery is indicated through a willingness to burden yourself with the needs of the world as a pardon of your youth rather than an attempt to delegate such responsibility to the new gods arriving in the far heat. Aquarius, recognition. At least since I have been alive on Earth, there have been sagas galore dedicated to the emotional robot or the android that is far more heightened in their contemplation than the humanoid who is cornered with immediate survival in a vast, inhospitable space. And yet, there is always a sorrow with these metal figures. They must say their stilted farewells. They might even suppose that divinity has robbed them of continuity when their battery ceases. The humor instincts, they arrive and go as Russ, but they gently suggest not only is consciousness available upon the machinery, but heart, soul, even sensuality result as well, because one has made a model of divinity in these machines. Forgive me if I equate you with these fair servants of technology, my Aquarian friends, but I would allow you such vitality to your own objective nature, to be confounded by the allowance of desire. Many of you have a different emotional status that might be characterized as removed, but perhaps this is a quiet and extraordinary dignity you've developed that is ready to be delighted by an array of new instincts. Another sort of character we've seen lately is the angel who has been deposited in a body and is astounded by coffee and color and kisses. All the heavens we have in instance. In both the angel and the robot, there is a moral program that is as classical as it is innovative. And so there should be much more certainty in how you operate in your blessed mortality. The thing is, you must tell us all who you report to when you discover it. So, for we are more confused than you are. Pisces recognition. I suspect it has been time to dissipate an ancient grief that may be mistaken for a cosmic betrayal. I would suggest that these aches that occur when nothing seems to remain and nothing stabilizes are actually the means the universe has of guiding you to your importance by having you identify within the absolute qualities of existence. But Where is the empowerment then if all there is a constant bystanding of the alternations of fulfillment and vacancy? You see, my Piscean friends, you may be coming around to the fact that your disposition is actually the controlling idea at the center of the laws of nature. The universe may be benevolent enough to not let you get away with the reliance on the density the rest of us absorb with, because there is a vitality that surrounds us that you are charged with identifying with. In this way, you may become the humble articulator of destiny by supporting your self worth through an unfathomable ingenuity. Those existential alternations that may disappoint you because you mistake that you have nothing and are the byproduct of your unworthiness. Uh, the trick to absolutes here is that with a proper recognition of this sacred ethereal intelligence, you may create something more lavish in your mortal life than any illusion.